Good morning, students. Welcome to today's lecture. Today we'll be discussing the part 2 of the topic dental caries. The learning outcomes for this topic include the following, which we have discussed in the previous lecture as well. In the previous lecture, we had discussed the illustration of etiopathogenesis of dental caries. We have discussed the various aspects of etiopathogenesis. We had also discussed microbiology of dental caries. In today's topic, we will be briefly again revising the microbiology of dental caries, followed by we'll be discussing with the how to detect dental caries clinically and radiologically. So to begin with the microbiology, we had discussed that caries is a multifactorial disease and which includes a number of microorganisms, number of acidogenic and acidic organisms, which results in the fermentation of carbohydrates formation resulting in formation of caries. So we had spoken about a number of bacteria. The most significant of this bacteria is the Streptococci species, which involves various subtypes which are related to caries. The most significant of the Streptococci species include Streptococcus mutans, followed by Streptococcus sobrinus. These microorganisms are present in the plaque and they are more commonly seen in caries. We had also discussed about pioneer bacteria and which changes according to the structure of the tooth. So for enamel caries, Streptococcus mutans is the pioneer bacteria and Lactobacillus acidophilus is pioneer bacteria for dentinal caries. Please remember the names of other microorganisms which are also related to dental caries, like the non-mutants Streptococci such as Mitis, Salivarius, Angiosus, Sanguis groups, non-Streptococci bacilli like Lactobacilli, Veillonella species and Actinomyces. Root caries, the pioneer bacteria is Actinomyces viscosus. So, following the description or discussion of various bacteria involved, it is very important that we highlight the role of the most significant bacteria that is related to dental caries, that is Streptococcus mutans. So, when you're talking about the microbiology, it is also important to briefly highlight slightly in detail the role of Streptococcus mutans, because it's the primary pathogen for all form of caries, as it's also known as the pioneer bacteria for enamel caries. And as you know, caries always begins from the outermost surface. So overall for dental caries, the pioneer bacteria is Streptococcus mutans. So it is a gram-positive organism. It is alpha hemolytic and facultative anaerobe. That means it can survive also in the presence of oxygen. Obligative anaerobes are those microorganisms which can survive only under anaerobic conditions, whereas facultative anaerobe is one which can also survive in the presence of oxygen. So Streptococcus mutans falls under that category. Also, what makes Streptococcus mutans more favorable to causation of dental caries? So it possesses a number of specialized mechanisms, especially which helps in its retention and attachment to the tooth surface. Also, it has a role to play in the fermentation of carbohydrates. The fermentation process is quite efficient in case of Streptococcus mutans, and the final and the most important process is the feature is that it is resistant to the adverse effects of low pH. That means Streptococcus mutans are acidogenic as well as acidic microorganisms, which helps its survival in even in low pH conditions and leads to progression of dental caries. So Streptococcus mutans are generally present in the oral cavity and they colonize around the surface of tooth, especially the hard surface of tooth, and they appear in the oral cavity immediately or a little while later after eruption of the tooth. So Streptococcus mutans is not infection which we derive from an external source. These are indigenous microorganisms. They are generally derived maternally from the mother as a caregiver through the milk. It is also derived Streptococcus mutans, and it is also derived genetically. So there are forms of Streptococcus mutans which are maternally derived forms of Streptococcus mutans. So immediately after the tooth erupts into the oral cavity, we will have Streptococcus mutans appearing in the oral cavity. So further discussing the role of Streptococcus mutans, we need to highlight the various important features which makes it quite a dominant microorganism related to dental caries. These are the adhesion, the ability to produce polysaccharides, the ability to form glucose binding proteins, its acidogenic nature, its aciduric nature, and its ability to survive in the biofilm. A biofilm, as we discussed, is the dental plaque, and it contains numerous microorganisms. So the Streptococcus mutans has a dominant role in survival in the presence of other microorganisms as well. So it easily forms on the surface of the tooth, on the surface of the tooth pellicle, which is formed from the saliva. So it has a property of adhesion on these tooth surfaces. Also, Streptococcus mutans, as we had discussed in the etiopathogenesis, there are intra and extracellular polysaccharides which are formed as a part of fermentation. So these polysaccharides also help in the bacterial adhesion, and they are present in large quantities in the plaque. These glucose binding proteins helps the Streptococcus mutans to aggregate onto the surface. Then these are also utilized by the Streptococcus mutans to produce acids, and these can tolerate the acidic conditions and lead to further production of acids in the biofilm and results in progression of the caries process. The cavity is enlarged as a result of this. Also, the final one, that is the biofilm adaptation, is that the biofilm has various stresses which will make the survival of the microorganisms deficient. These stresses include the fluctuation of nutrients which are required for the survival of the microorganisms, the fluctuation of oxygen tension, that is the conversion of the biofilm oxygen tension from aerobic to anaerobic conditions, which will lead to alteration in the species of bacteria. However, Streptococcus mutans, since it is a facultative anaerobe, it is able to survive in the change of conditions as well. And also, it is a dominant bacteria when it comes to interbacterial competition. As you know, various microorganisms are there. Some microorganisms are dominant and they prevent the proliferation of the lesser dominant microorganisms. However, Streptococcus mutans is a dominant microorganism and it helps in its survival in the presence of other microorganisms. So these were the features which makes Streptococcus mutans a highly effective microorganism in causation of dental caries. I hope you guys remember these points and are able to describe when the microbiology of dental caries is discussed. Fine. Moving further to the histopathology of dental caries, we will be discussing the various microscopic features of a caries lesion which can be appreciated under a microscope. Since we had discussed in the part 1 of dental caries that there is a demineralization of tooth which results in cavitation. So on a macroscopic level, to the naked eye, we can see that there is a blackening of the surface of tooth, and also there is the appearance of a cavity. A large cavity can be seen in terms of dental caries. However, it is also known that some forms of dental caries you will not be able to see a large cavity, which upon further explanation is only being able to be detected. So especially the pit and fissure caries to naked eye may appear really normal, but on further probing we would realize that there's a large cavity beneath the surface of enamel. So these various changes associated with the dental caries has been studied microscopically, and these studies have been able to delineate various features which has been divided as or designated as zones of caries. So the zones of caries are distinct for enamel and dentin, which we will discuss in the subsequent slides. So to begin with enamel, if you see in the picture, this is like area of fissure, pit and fissure, and you can see this area which has been highlighted. This is the representation of pit and fissure caries. So if you see the magnified version, you can see that This is the normal enamel wherein the rods and interrod substances are schematically represented. However, this area does not show the same features but shows different zones which has been categorized as follows. So the four zones which can be appreciated in the enamel caries are translucent zone, dark zone, body of the lesion and surface zone. So appreciate these as the outer surface, this as the outer surface of the tooth, this one, and this one is the inner surface. Fine. So this is the outer surface, this is the inner surface, this is the dentino-enamel junction, the junction between enamel and dentin. So the caries always starts from the surface and it proceeds inwards. So when it proceeds inwards, it shows two patterns. Basically, it can start as a pit and fissure caries on the surface, or it can occur on smooth surface where there is no pit and fissures. These are known as smooth surface caries. So the two zones are appreciable in both pit and fissure caries and smooth surface caries. However, there is a main difference in the shape of the overall lesion. In case of smooth surface caries, the outer surface of the basically the two carious processes will have a roughly triangular shape. Overall, a triangular shape will be there, but for pit and fissure caries, the triangular shape is like this. The outer surface is narrow and the base of the triangle is towards the inner aspect. So this is like a triangle with the base towards the inner aspect and the apex towards the outer aspect. However, in smooth surface caries, the base is towards the outer aspect, the broader surface is towards the outer aspect, the narrower surface is towards the inner aspect. This is the narrower end, this is the broader end. We will discuss this further as we progress into the next slide. So we have four zones: translucent zone, dark zone, body of the lesion and surface zone. So here you can see this is pit and fissure caries as seen in by the naked eye. You can see some dark spots, you can see the base of the fissure showing blackish discoloration. This is a ground section of the tooth showing the same features as you can see here. This is the normal portion of the tooth outside the triangle, and the classical triangular feature of the lesion can be appreciated where the base is towards the inner aspect and the apex is towards the outer aspect. Fine. So these four zones are as follows. So the innermost zone wherein the caries has not yet progressed is the normal enamel. I hope everyone remembers the enamel as seen in the ground section during your oral biology. So this is the normal enamel, shows a uniform dark brownish area. This is followed by a typical shiny prominence, that is the translucent zone. This is the innermost aspect of the pit and fissure caries. So this ground section image here is of a smooth surface caries. As you can see, this is the broader outer aspect. If you follow the triangle, this is the inner aspect. So the first zone, which is towards the sound enamel, is the translucent zone. Then you have a dark zone, then you have the body of the lesion, and then you have a subsurface zone. Please remember that this black area is not the surface zone, this is the surface zone, because this is an artifact due to the presence of air bubble in a slide, and this is actually the subsurface zone. So these four zones are are studied extensively, and these have been delineated according to its crystal size and the presence of pore. So the pores are nothing but the space in between two enamel rods. As you know, enamel is a densely mineralized structure, and it is nearly 96% calcium hydroxyapatite crystals. So wherever the organic matter is there, you will find some pores. So these organic matters are basically the interprismatic areas. So based on studies, it has been found that the pore volume of normal enamel is 0.1%. However, as we see in the carious lesion, the translucent zone shows in normal it is 0.01%, in translucent zone it is 0.1%, in dark zone it is 2 to 5%, in body of the lesion it is 5 to 25%. The pore volume progressively increases. That means in the body of the lesion there is extensive destruction of the enamel prisons and there is empty areas resulting in large pores. Subsurface zone is slightly mineralized because it becomes remineralized from the outer saliva which deposits calcium crystals, so the pore volume is again less here as compared to this, and this will have a narrow zone which is roughly 40 microns in thickness. So this image shows the same thing, but the caries on the proximal surface. So these are smooth surface caries. Again you can see a different image of a ground section showing the classic triangular shape of the lesion with the broader surface towards the outer surface and the apex towards the inner surface. So you can see the translucent zone, immediately below is the dark zone, then you have the body of the lesion, and then you have here the surface zone. Okay, another representation of a smooth surface caries and the diagram, the schematic representation of the various zones. If you understand these four zones, you will be able to identify it on a ground section clearly. Okay, so that was all about enamel caries. However, when the caries progresses from the enamel inwards, it will progress into the dentin. So as we discussed previously as well, caries always begins from the surface of the enamel, either on the smooth surface or on the base of the pit and fissures. Once it progresses from the enamel to the dentin, it reaches the dentino-enamel junction. Once it reaches the dentino-enamel junction, the carious lesion will first spread laterally and then it starts progressing inwards, finally reaching the pulp. So carious lesion is always beginning from the enamel and it reaches the pulp. When the carious lesion reaches the pulp, it results in inflammation of the pulp, that is pulpitis, and this is when the tooth becomes painful. We had discussed this in the online discussion where we discussed various aspects of the previous topic. So until the carious lesion is restricted to the enamel or dentin, the patient will not complain of any pain. However, when it reaches the pulp, there will be symptoms of pain because the nerve fibers are stimulated by the inflammatory mediators which are produced as a result of this infectious process. So since you are aware that the enamel structurally is different from dentin, enamel is highly mineralized as well as compared to dentin. However, dentin has a higher organic component. Also structurally, dentin is relatively porous due to the presence of dentinal tubules, which has a vital tissue, that is the odontoblastic process, which is extension of odontoblasts which are present just along the dentinopulpal junction. So it has a vital tissue within the dentin, whereas this is absent in enamel. So the way the carious process proceeds in the dentin is different. So because of the presence of a vital tissue, there are reactionary changes which help to slow down or prevent the progression of caries. So this results in distinct zones which are different from that of enamel. So in terms of dentin caries, remember the term is also known as dentinal caries or dentin caries. Please do not confuse this with the dental caries. Dental caries is the caries in general, may be related to enamel or may be related to the dentin, but dentinal caries, when we are talking about dentinal caries, we mean specifically to the caries in relation to the dentin. So as enamel caries has 4 zones, dentinal caries has 5 zones which can be clearly delineated. So these zones are basically appreciated from the pulpal end towards the enamel end. So starting from the pulpal end, the first zone will be zone of fatty degeneration, then there is zone of dentinal sclerosis, then there is zone of decalcification, zone of bacterial invasion, zone of decomposed dentin. In addition to this, along the pulpodentinal junction, you will find some reactionary or tertiary dentin formation. So as you can, if you see this image, illustrative image, this is the enamel, dentin and pulp. Enamel caries we have discussed, all the 4 zones have crossed and the caries has spread laterally along the dentino-enamel junction. Once it reaches it, it starts progressing inwards. Generally, the caries process narrows down as it goes towards the inner surface, and you can see the reactionary or tertiary dentin formation towards the pulpal end, which is stimulated by odontoblast in response to the inflammatory processes. And the different zones as appreciated as discussed here, the innermost zone will be towards the pulpal end, that is the zone of fatty degeneration, followed by zone of dentinal sclerosis, followed by zone of decalcification, followed by zone of bacterial invasion, followed by zone of decomposed dentin. So these 5 zones will be discussed further. Here you can see again a image of a decalcified section. Remember that for studying dentinal caries we generally use decalcified section. However, for studying enamel caries, since it is highly mineralized, decalcified section will not reveal much because all the mineral content is lost. So we prefer a ground section for enamel caries. However, we prefer a decalcified section for dentinal caries. So you can see here the caries process in the dentin. This is the pulpal tissue, this is the crown portion of the dentin, this is the root, and this is the pulp. So this is the carious lesion which is progressed from the enamel and to the pulp. So again revising the 5 zones, the innermost zone, that is the zone of sclerosis, zone of fatty degeneration. So basically when the caries process progresses into the tooth, it generally proceeds through within the dentinal tubules, as opposed to enamel which is quite rigid and solid. The caries process progresses broadly, destroying the enamel hydroxyapatite crystals. However, because of the presence of pores in dentin, the process takes a easier approach by progressing through these pores and spreading laterally as it progresses. So the changes are appreciated along the walls of dentinal tubules as the caries progress. So the initial most change which is appreciated toward the pulpal end is the zone of fatty degeneration. The dentinal tubule is lined by an organic layer, and when the caries process begins, the acids cause dissolution of this organic layer, and you will find some changes, and these are referred to as fatty degeneration, following which there will be a reflex mechanism which will try to ward off this caries process by formation of dentinal hydroxyapatite crystals within the dentinal tubule, such that it results in blockage of the dentinal tubule, and this is referred to as zone of sclerosis. Then you will find the areas of demineralization. So when the caries process progresses further, the acids which are produced starts leaching out the minerals from the walls of the dentinal tubules, such that you will find freely formed hydroxyapatite crystals, and these are the zones of demineralization. When this process spreads further, these are the initial levels of demineralization by the initial karyogenic microorganisms which is causing this. Once this progresses further, it will result in more bacteria multiplication and more bacteria adding to the caries process. So, and this causes more acid production, such that the walls of the dental tubules are becoming broader as a result of loss of more hydroxyapatite crystals. So as you can see here, the walls have become irregular and they are distended. These are the zones of bacterial invasion. When this caries process progresses further, the zones of intertubular dentin becomes narrow, and sometimes it fuses to form a single area, and such area are known as liquefaction foci of Miller. If this has progressed further such that there is no intertubular dentin at all, this is the zone of decomposed dentin. So in this zone we will not find any calcified tissue, we will have only the bacterial proliferation material and the decomposed material of the hydroxyapatite crystals of the organic structure of dentin. So you will find all the breakdown products in the zone of decomposition. So these are how the 5 zones of dentinal caries are described. So remember that the most progressive lesion is towards the enamel surface, and the least carious lesion or the aspect of the dentinal caries is towards the pulp. This is a decalcified section, again showing the dentinal caries. You can faintly appreciate the tubular configuration, the linear pattern. This in a high power magnification you can see, and this is the basically the gap which has been created by the decay. And when you can see the various aspects of dentinal tubules, and when the carious lesion progresses laterally, this is like from the zone of mineralization progressing to bacterial invasion, such that the intertubular dentines are lost, and it results in an elliptical area of decalcification which comprises of the bacterial debris and other breakdown products. This is known as liquefaction foci of Miller. We will discuss about this further during the practical session following the discussion of the slide. Hopefully by then the understanding will be clear. So until then, please read about liquefaction foci of Miller, and we will discuss further in the practical session. Also, along with liquefaction foci of Miller, we will be able to see some lateral slit-like areas which are perpendicular to the direction of the dentinal tubules. You can see some lateral slit-like areas. These are basically because of progressive decalcification. The walls of the dentinal tubules will become weak, such that any stress on the surface of tooth is going to strip off the dentin from its adjoining tissue, resulting in transverse, what we call as transverse clefts. So you can see a high power magnified image showing the presence of transverse cleft. Always remember the transverse clefts are almost perpendicular to the surface of dentinal tubules, and these are basically seen in the progressive zones of dentinal caries. So these can be seen in zone 4 or zone 5. Zone 4 mostly zone of bacterial invasion, we will be able to see the transverse clefts. So to revise, 5 zones are seen in dentinal caries, which can be seen from the pulpal end towards the outermost end. Also along with that, you will find a zone of reparative dentin or remineralized dentin along the surface of the pulp. Okay, so that was the histopathological aspect of enamel and dentinal caries. Now we'll be discussing the final learning outcome for our topic on dental caries, that is detection of dental caries. So in our clinics, we will be routinely examining the oral cavity and the teeth for any changes related to the tooth. So mostly we will be looking for dental caries. So universally, the most commonly followed technique for caries detection is the clinical method, which includes visual and tactile. So any department or any institution in this world, when it comes to detection of dental caries, will follow these two basic techniques primarily, which may or may not be added by further specialized techniques. But for caries detection, if we follow the clinical and radiological method, it is more than enough for successful identification of dental caries. So under the clinical, we have visual, tactile. Visual means just observing the surface of tooth for any changes, and tactile means using a probe, explorer or a probe, and contacting the surface of tooth and feeling for any changes. In radiographic method, we take a intraoral radiograph. The various types of radiographs can be taken for observing the caries process on the surface of tooth. Okay, beginning with the clinical technique of caries detection, first will be visual. As I mentioned already, it is the most commonly used method for caries detection, and it is practiced universally, and it is easy to perform because all it needs is just simple visualization. Probably we'll need good illumination for the visualization process to be effective. So always illuminate the tooth properly before carrying out this procedure, and this is routinely carried out in clinical practice. The advantage of visual examination is that it has a high specificity. That means it is able to identify the sound sites correctly. However, it has low sensitivity. Sometimes we will not be able to identify the caries sites just by visualization, and it has low reproducibility. Because of this disadvantage, the different examiners will not be able to identify a carious lesion. Some may be able to identify, some may not be able to identify. So that means it has a lower reproducibility, and this is because of its subjective nature. So when we are visualizing the tooth, we are looking for four basic things. So first will be the loss of gloss of enamel, loss of transparency, loss of smoothness, and we will also be appreciating the borders of enamel. So a sound enamel as such is homogeneous, and it's mineralized in nature, and it has a smooth surface. However, carious lesion, if it has initiated, there is surface decalcification such that the surface becomes rough. So this will eventually lead to loss of gloss of the enamel. So this can be appreciated, but for this feature to be appreciated, we need to always dry the tooth by airing or using a gauze, and then only we will be able to appreciate the loss of gloss. If it's a sound tooth which is non-carious, following drying and removing the saliva from the tooth, it will still retain its glossiness. A carious tooth will not. Second feature is the loss of transparency. This is again appreciated by removal of any plaque or also by drying the tooth. The calcium hydroxyapatite crystals are uniform in nature throughout the enamel, and this will result in a transparency to the structure of the tooth. However, when there is a carious process, the hydroxyapatite crystals are undergoing demineralization, resulting in a non-homogeneous structure of enamel, and this affects the transparency, and this can be appreciated by visualization method. Also, because I mentioned there will be surface demineralization, so the surface becomes rough, it no longer retains the gloss. This roughness can also be seen as the loss of smoothness, but the initial lesions may not show cavitation, but definitely will have some roughness. The last point which can be appreciated for visual examination is the border, because the area of demineralization or caries which is happening, there is definitely alteration in the calcium hydroxyapatite crystal formation, or formation in the sense there is removal of crystals. So the structure of the enamel is different in a carious portion as compared to that of a sound healthy tooth. So the borders of the lesion is clearly delineated as like a healthy enamel or carious enamel, and this can be appreciated by simple visual examination. Excuse me. So to summarize, for visual examination we need to have good illumination for upper arch or for areas which are on the distal proximal surfaces. We may use a mouth mirror for visualization, and we need to keep the surface of the tooth dry and free of saliva to be able to visualize it properly. Along with this, for tactical examination, we will be requiring a probe or an explorer. In PIDC, we are following the ICDAS technique of caries identification, wherein we will perform a visual examination, and also we will have a tactile examination using a WHO probe, that is a ball-ended probe. The probe has instead of a normal probe which has a sharp tip, this has a ball-ended tip so that it does not give false results. So we'll be using a ball-ended probe, and the examination will be carried out on a clean and dry teeth. Always remember to make the surface of tooth dry before visual examination, and based on the scoring chart we will be giving various scores to the tooth. We have already discussed about the ICDAS score. As and when we are being posted in the department and we get more exposure to the ICDAS scores, we will be able to remember it. So remember that in ICDAS scoring system we are using a 2-digit code. The first digit signifies the existing condition of the tooth, whether it is sound tooth, whether it has been previously restored, if restored what kind of restoration it is, and the second number basically indicates the score of the caries lesion. So the different scores given which can be given to the tooth in terms of caries is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 0 is when there is no change or a slight translucency after air drying, so we give a score 0. 1 if there is some visual change, generally confined to the pit and fissures. 2 when there is distinct visual change but can be appreciated on the enamel. 3 is when we actually call it dental caries. From 3 onwards, the tooth will require restoration. So the classical feature of tactile examination, what we call a catch, is when the end of the explorer is getting stuck while examining the surface of tooth. So this is because there is a enamel breakdown in localized area and we are passing the probe. The tip of the probe is engaged in that breakdown area and it's difficult to move it, or the movement the probe can be moved with some amount of pressure. So this is what we call a catch. So in such cases we will give the score of 3. Score 4 is given when there is a dark shadow. A dark shadow on the surface of the dentine can be appreciated on the surface of enamel as well. Score 5 when there is a large distinctive cavity visible. Score 6 is the extension of this distinctive cavity and it shows like more than half, it's involving more than half surface of the tooth. Following clinical examination that includes visual and tactile method, sometimes we need to confirm the presence of caries with the use of radiographs. These are generally helpful in terms of identifying proximal caries where we cannot visualize directly, or sometimes because of lack of visualization we would not have appreciated it with the explorer as well. Or sometimes we have a doubt that there might be a caries because of other findings and we need to confirm that there is this presence of proximal caries with the help of radiograph. So various radiographic techniques are useful. The most commonly used are the conventional methods. These two are the most important radiographs which are helpful in detecting caries. The first one is the IOPAR, intraoral periapical radiograph, and the second one is bite wing. Remember that bite wing radiograph is the most useful radiograph for detection of proximal caries. Proximal caries is one which is present between the surface of two teeth. So this is a proximal caries and this cannot be visualized directly with the naked eye. Possibly there is difficulty using a probe to reach this proximal area. In such cases we use a radiograph, more preferably a bite wing radiograph for detection of proximal caries. In certain situations we will also use IOPAR for detection of caries. Other than that, there are more advanced radiographic techniques which we do not use in regular clinical practice, but in higher centers probably and for research purposes we use advanced techniques like zero radiography or digital radiographic imaging techniques for examination of caries. You can see this faint image of the holder and the patient is asked to bite onto the holder such that the film is placed parallel to the surface of teeth, and you can see both the upper tooth and the lower tooth. The periapical area or the apex cannot be appreciated, but all the proximal surface can be appreciated in a bite wing radiograph. So how do you identify a caries? We should be able to appreciate the normal radiographic feature of the tooth. We should remember that enamel is the most mineralized component of the tooth and hence the radio opacity is more dense for enamel. As we progress inwards, this is the dentine which is less mineralized as compared to enamel, so the radio opacity is less, and when we move inwards we have the pulpal tissue. This is purely soft tissue and does not have any calcification, so the pulpal space will generally be radiolucent. So a radiograph will show radio opacity and radiolucency. Depending on the levels of radio opacity we should be able to identify whether it is enamel or dentine. When it comes to caries, we know that it causes destruction of minerals. So definitely the mineral content of a carious tooth is less, and it is appreciated as radiolucent areas. So when we compare the surface of tooth radiographically, the structure of tooth radiographically with that of a carious lesion, we will be able to delineate it as a cavity when compared to that. In radiographs, you will also be able to identify restorations. The restorative materials have a radio opaque property, and these are more radio opaque than the structure of enamel itself. So a restorative material can be easily identified and delineated from the sound enamel. In some cases, there will be a caries, as you can see, if the tooth is not restored properly, or during cavity preparation the carious lesion is not removed completely. The process can continue even after the restoration, and this is what we call as secondary caries or recurrent caries. Sometimes we'll find structures like this on the surface of tooth. This is how a root canal treated tooth appears. This is the filling material which will be occupying the pulpal space. This is what we call as gatapacha. Then there is a restorative material in the access cavity. This will be followed by a crown. A crown will be placed on the root canal treated tooth. This is how a root canal treated tooth will appear. This is again an example of secondary caries. There is a extensive crown placement on the tooth, but on the surface of the root, this was not probably identified during the initial diagnosis, and it resulted in extension of caries, and this is what we call as secondary caries or recurrent caries. Other than that, we have more specialized techniques for caries detection. These are not routinely used in a clinical practice, probably useful in higher centers or for research purposes. These include fiber optic trans illumination, wherein a fiber optic cable is used and it transmits light to the surface of tooth. So these are visualized under darkened settings, and the translucency of the tooth is appreciated with the use of fiber optic light. Excuse me. If there any caries process active, it can be seen as a difference in the translucency of the tooth. So here you can appreciate the presence of a proximal caries using fiber optic trans illumination. Another advanced radiographic technique can use what we call as caries detection dyes. Various dyes are available utilizing various properties of permeability of enamel, presence of calcium salts which are exposed as a result of demineralization, and caries detection dyes are applied to the surface of tooth, which will positively stain a decayed area and can be appreciated as caries positive. So these are advanced techniques and not routinely followed. What we follow routine in our clinic is visual examination, which includes clinical examination, which includes visual and tactile examination, and followed by radiographic technique, which includes IOPA and bite wing. So hope the detection of dental caries is clear to you guys. We will be further discussing about detection during the clinical postings, where we'll be able to see it on the patient while we are doing the routine examination. We'll discuss the histopathology of dental caries further during the laboratory session, and any further doubts will be clarified there. Thank you for your patient listening. See you soon.